The Rivers of the World project is a river-themed joint curriculum project where 6 schools in Zimbabwe are partnering with 6 schools in Liverpool. And they are working on broadly the river themes like river culture, river as a resource, the river ecosystem, and pollution. Locally, we shall have an exhibition where we display the artistic expressions that the students have done. We expect it to be a face-to-face event with a curated audience. At the same time, it will also be going live online, so we will be reaching out to other audiences online as well. These schools are developing artistic expressions that will be displayed in London at the River Thames Festival. The whole idea is for these learners to have the theoretical concepts taking a more practical dimension, because as they interact with these geographic themes on rivers, they are doing it in a fun way. The project is project-based learning, and it's learner-centered. So the whole idea is for the learners to develop artistic skills, but also their creativity and imagination is improved in the process. Their communication and collaboration skills, their critical thinking and problem-solving skills are also coming out strongly.
So the Rivers of the World journey was particularly exciting for me as an artist and as someone who was providing some sort of guidance for the learners, because I understood, having learned within the Zimbabwean system myself, that there's a heavy dependence or a heavy reliance on STEM, and slowly we're shifting to STEAM. So it was an opportunity to lead the learners away from their typical objective research and all of those factual things that they studied on site at the river and so on, and actually introduce some paradigms, or what we called our 7 pillars, which were all creative, and they were all meant to escort the students into this journey of discovery about how they can express their understanding of the different themes that they were exploring. So each theme definitely impacted how we approached each school. So each school definitely had its unique theme, but not only was that a challenge, we also had the differences in these schools in that they had different types of infrastructure, or unlike other schools in the West, just to give you an example, it's not common in Zimbabwe to find that you have an art studio or a photo studio or any of those kinds of resources. So we had to think really creatively about how to give the kids an opportunity to explore their theme with the resources in hand. And that in itself was a challenge and an opportunity at the same time. I'm very excited and very pleased to see the results of what they managed to create using a lot of organic materials that we collected, whether they were from the river or from their households. So a lot of the kids were clever enough to look at things as basic as mosquito nets and realize that was an opportunity for them to actually use a household item and turn it into an expressive tool. A lot of these schools are not particularly urban, some were a little peri-urban, but this didn't hinder them from using electronics. For example, one of the schools, Remuka 1, you had kids actually powering up their little miniature of a bridge using rechargeable batteries, which is very eco-friendly, and using light-emitting diodes. So that was exciting. I enjoyed watching the learners actually apply things that they see, things that are ubiquitous inside of our own African culture, and apply them artistically and still deliver a message.
Rivers of the World project with the students at Remuka 1 High School, where they were expressing different themes that they gathered from a food of Munyati River.
Many people in Munyati use fish as their food.
And this is the alluvial gold which was found in the river.
The experience, it was just fun.
We learned a lot at Munyati River.
We had to do a lot of groundwork. We didn't have the 4 days or 5 days like other countries did. So we made use of the 6 or 8 hours that we could spend at each school. But before that, we were very fortunate to actually have Zoom workshops where we got to discuss and hear from the kids what they had seen in person. I was really pleased that in some cases the learners got to visit the river and have physical interactions with religious groups, gold panners, and sometimes actually see, like in the case of the Munyati River, there's actually a hydroelectric power station that's situated there. So they got to see firsthand the impact of burning fossil fuels like coal and the discharge of waste materials from this power station, how that impacts the river. This being the first time we had actually gotten a chance to participate in Rivers of the World, we felt as though it was our responsibility to represent our own culture within the artwork. Contemporary African culture is very distinct in that apart from using mediums such as pen and ink and so on, the traditional mediums, we've managed to create an identity within metalwork and sculpting and creating things using wire, for example. We have very popular wire cars and very distinct instruments and other objects that we make using tin cans from oil containers and things like that. And it's become a staple within contemporary art in Southern Africa. And I was really excited when the students found ways of combining seashells and imitating soapstone sculptures, which we make here in Zimbabwe, and dropping those small hints in whatever they fabricated or built in order for the African identity to actually shine through in the artwork. And that was very essential when it came to certain themes to do with river culture. it was less about making diagrams or diagrammatic representations of what they saw and the things that they got to talk about with people they interviewed and so on at the river. But this was more of an opportunity to inspire them, to encourage them to think outside the box, to also get them to learn new things by using obvious artistic mediums such as paint and sculpting and clay and so on. And that in itself was an eye-opener, and it was such a big shift because you could see how they gained a lot more confidence and how they realized that as much as it was school, they were allowed to venture into their own imaginations and create things that still had a relevant meaning to the topics that they had studied at the river. So I was excited that in as much as they didn't have the infrastructure to be experienced in painting or photography or those kinds of things, they had that knowledge or that experience of actually engaging with the different people in and around the river and to see firsthand the different activities like worship and rituals near the river itself.
Culture is a way of life. River culture is the traditional way of life that happens along the river. Along Munyati River, churches and traditional healers, they come for baptism and consult spirit mediums. For example, we have churches like Sayoja, Seventh-day Adventist, and St. John. They come to Munyati River for baptism. We have apostolic churches who come to the river to collect stones and sand soil. Traditional healers, they enter the river to collect shells and herbs. There is a rumor that in Munyati River there is a mermaid.
People from other countries, they come for trophy hunting during hunting season. Tourists come to play fishing tournaments so that they catch the biggest fish. People come for sightseeing of dam walls.
So the beauty of Rivers of the World is that, like most programs, it's scalable. And since this was a starting point specifically for Zimbabwe, there are lots of opportunities ahead. The challenges, like I said earlier, presented a lot of opportunities. And these opportunities lie in shifting the learning process further away from just STEM and taking it more into an area where we encourage creative thinking, creative problem solving, cultural and self-expression as different approaches to how learners can actually engage with different topics, not only limited to Rivers of the World, but broadly. And I think the future is in actually accepting the imaginative powers that young people have, because that is where we will get our inventions, our technological innovations, and of course, our new art for the next generation. So the future looks very bright for projects like this, and there's no limit to what can be achieved in terms of just lifting up the self-worth and self-esteem of the students involved.
The Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education was involved in the selection of the 6 participating schools for the project. Our ministry was also involved in supervising the project so that it becomes a resounding success. The Rivers of the World project is a learner-centered project. What I observed was teamwork in action when the learners were executing their different tasks. They were able to share everything in terms of executing our tasks. So this is what I also observed. I also observed critical thinking, research skills being sharpened when they were doing their different activities.
So the Zimbabwean schools, basically, they've now started this project, and we expect that in the next round, they will come on board onto the grant-funded Connecting Classroom project, where they receive funding to undertake these joint curriculum projects that they've been doing, and as well as contributing to the achievement of the wider achievement of sustainable development goals. We expect that our students will come out of this project better equipped, and also showing and demonstrating evidence that this is the new way of learning the global citizenship skills. They also bring in an international dimension because they are learning from one another. So in the process, there is cross-pollination of ideas, they share best practices, and we see, we have also heard some good testimonials from the teachers and learners involved in this project, because they indicated that theoretical concepts are now taking a practical dimension, and this is quite pleasing for all the stakeholders. So we would want to thank our key stakeholder locally, that is the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education, who have been responsible for selecting these schools and also guiding us throughout this whole process.